Hi, Homeworthy. My name is Lindsie. Welcome to my home in Wimberley, Texas.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi there, my name is Lindsie Davis. I am the founder and principal designer at Blueberry Jones Design. Welcome to my home in Wimberley, Texas. We are just right outside of Austin, and it's a very cute, eclectic little artsy town. How we came to Wimberley is kind of a funny story. I was working on a project out here and just kind of fell in love with the town. And my husband always wanted to live on some land. And so I told him if he could find property here, I would be willing to move. And the next day he came out and he actually found our lot. We put a contract on it and sold our house and moved here with no idea what we were gonna do for our actual home. So we rented an apartment that was newly built in Wimberley, and it's a very small town. It's the only apartment complex that is here, and it's a little 2-bedroom, 2-bath that we had, and started figuring out how we were gonna make this land into our sanctuary. When starting to plan our house, I actually worked backwards, and I wanted to plan my furniture scale first and then build walls around that. I really wanted to make sure that the room sizes were scaled appropriately to what we wanted to use each room for. And therefore, I decided to start from the inside and work out. When designing this house, I really wanted to stick to my roots in design and create something that was a total experience. I had the idea to go for a lounge vibe. I love Palm Springs. I love mid-century design. And I wanted to add in a little playful patterns and push boundaries when it came to the color schemes. Welcome everyone to my entryway. The start of the design for here was a mural that I had made with Black Crow Studio. It reminds us of the waterscape where my husband goes fishing a lot. And so that was kind of like his one thing that he loved in this space. And that's where I started. So I took that organic and I popped a geometric, bright, bold rug with it. This is actually a rug that I created in a collaboration with Floor Rugs. On this entry, I found a really fun table that I loved the zigzag edge. I thought it paired nicely with the organic background. And you'll notice that everything on the table is in pairs of 3 because we are a family of 3. So that's kind of like my welcome of here's our family. I don't really do family portraits. And so that's our little connection to portraits. The artwork in here is a little different. I went with 2 giant oversized photography prints, but these represent my husband and I. He is very opposite of me in the sense that I'm very bold with my color and my wardrobe, and he is very simple. He likes outdoorsy. And so that's kind of more along his lines. And the grizzly bear is symbolic because his grandfather actually killed a grizzly bear on a hunt the day he was born. And so that was like our little memento to that. Over here, this is more my vibe. This art's called Gigi at Play, and I love monkeys. I always wanted a monkey, but never got one. And so this is like more my vibe. My husband likes to fish. I like to lay out, read a good book, and lounge. I found these really fun sculptural chairs through Mitchell Gold and Bob Williams, and just thought they were such a creative, fun way to start the mood in here. Everything in this room I think is very sculptural, and I love that about it because it greets you with such unexpected moments from the beginning. The lighting is probably one of my favorite things. This was a collaboration that Ashley Childress did with Global Views. And it feels like raindrops coming down on you. And that paired with the seascape mural feel all goes together from my world. All right, now let's head to our main living space. Welcome to our main living area. This is where we do all our entertaining. We hang out as a family. And so it's one large space, but I really wanted to make sure that it was delineated by what each area functions for. So we're gonna start in the actual living area. This is where we hang out every night. It's super cozy. Everything is lounge vibe exactly. And so I found these chairs, they're vintage. I was dropping off some fabric at an upholsterer that I use a lot, and he also does vintage finds. And they were sitting there, they were white, vinyl, old, original. And I scooped them up, and my husband was like, "You're crazy, where are we even gonna put these?" But these chairs actually started this entire room scheme. Because they're kind of centrally located, I wanted it to be interesting and have a fun pop of a pattern. So I went for the tiger stripe. It feels like a neutral to me, even though it has such movement and fun. Over here, we had a oversized sectional made. Fun fact, it is all feather and down. Therefore, it's super cozy, but it does require some fluffing time to time, which can be a very big workout for you. I picked the color because it's such a large part of the room. I did not want it to be neutral. I just felt like it would blend and not have the pop it needs. So I actually went with a color that's a lagoon color that balances off of the entry waterscape. And that's kind of how that color came to be. And then I started bringing in textiles that had neutral vibes plus pops of color that you'll see throughout the house. I love pink. Pink is a lot in my house. You'll see it everywhere. I wear it as well. I also love teals, and I like to contrast things with black and white, and that is where the wallpaper happens at the top. I didn't want the wall paneling to go all the way up because I felt like it was gonna feel too heavy. So I lowered it down by 2 feet and then decided that was a perfect opportunity to add a black and white pop of fun. I found these super fun tassel fringe ottomans at one of the trade showrooms and immediately had to have them. I wasn't sure where they were gonna go, just bought them, and then they actually worked out perfectly for this space. One thing I love to do is I always like to throw a color in that's kind of opposite of anything you see. It does work well with the blue, but the green chartreuse is just a pop that is on its own, so it kind of brings your eye in to the room. When it comes to all of the case good pieces, I wanted to have everything feel sculptural rather than just feel ordinary. And so I found these organic brass tables and then paired it with this really fun side table that has the tubes that come through, and I just feel like it in itself is a piece of art. Moving over here to the TV area, I hate TVs, but we love TVs because, you know, we like to watch TV, so gotta have it. I tucked it in and I found this really fun console that I thought paired well with the scheme happen above, and I love the texture movement. I love how you see this vertical grain happening here, and then it balances right in front of you with the ottomans, and then it carries through with this small scale marble mosaic that's on the fireplace as well. Fireplace, it's just real simplistic. Didn't really want it to be a focal point of the room, but we actually have never used it. We're not big fire people, so we just have it because it needed something in the room. So that architectural detail was added in. In order to help delineate each of the spaces, I needed to find some rugs that would work and be oversized. So what I love about this is they're actually carpet tiles and through floor. And I just thought it created a soft pattern that didn't overwhelm the space, but still, if it was plain, it wasn't gonna really have the factor it needed to stand off of the other furnishings. So one thing I love though is we have a dog, and when you have life happens, you can actually pull the carpet squares up and wash them and then place them back down. So you're not redoing an entire rug every time you have a mistake in the house. In keeping with my lounge feel, I opted for floor lamps that were all the same throughout the living and dining space. They're white, so they kind of keep this bright moment happening, and we love having them on in the evening and not having the overhead lighting on. And it works with that like cozy lounge vibe that obviously you can see I'm seeking. Over here, I placed a console table with a little chair. I sometimes actually work back there. It's not super comfortable, so I'll put a little cushion on it, but just a little fun spot. We needed to fill it up, and that was that was what happened. This Mona Lisa is something I found on Instagram. It was one of those things that pop up and it's like, you should have this. And I was like, oh yeah, I should. I had no idea what it was gonna be. And it's actually fur, and you like comb her hair, and like you can change her direction and stuff. It's kind of a favorite of my daughter's friends. They always come here and they start combing with it. So yeah, it's just fun. It has all the colors, and who doesn't love Mona Lisa? I found this lamp at Round Top and had a lampshade made for it that has just like a funky, 70s vibe to it. This is a monkey that I actually made in college in one of my clay classes, and that's one of the only pieces I kept, and it's still there with me. And then I have this like little crochet set thing back here that my mom actually made when she was younger, and so that's kind of like our little bar vibe happening. I would say my favorite room in the house would probably be this main living space. I think that it has such a cozy lounge feel that it always feels welcoming, but I also love that it's very artful, and it's like no matter where you look, there's something interesting you can find. I was first designing the house. I knew that concrete floors were probably gonna be the best because we have a pool outside, lots of land, lots of dirt, we have animals, and my daughter always has friends over. I did not want the maintenance of having to deal with wood floors. We'd had them in the past, and I kind of wanted to shake things up and make things a little different for this home. Therefore, I decided to take walnut paneling and place it on the walls. It warmed the space up, and it also just offered an interesting take on how you can apply different things to your wall other than paint and wallpaper. And now we're gonna head over to the dining room section. This is where we spend our nights. This is where my daughter hangs out. We do homework, we have dinner, and I did not make it like a typical world. And I decided to opt for a sofa instead of having 8 chairs because I wanted this to be a space where you could hang out, do a puzzle, have a long dinner, relax. When we have meals here and gatherings, it's nice because people don't feel like they have to get up right away and like move to the next area. It has its own lounge feel to it. And so you can just hang out and relax and continue socializing and having fun. These chairs I had recovered in a really fun print that, again, it's got a little bit of the green and blue that carry throughout. And then the sofa, I went for a bright pop of pink. I kind of told my husband a little fib, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be raspberry. And then it showed up and it's like the brightest pink fuchsia ever. And he was like, that's a nice raspberry color. But I felt like it really needed it because everything needs a little pop of pink in it. And the lamps continue over from the living room space, and that's kind of like the continuity throughout. And it's also just, again, it creates that feel that you can come, relax, stay a while, and you don't have to hurry up and eat and get out. So when it came to the artwork in here, I actually made this in our old house. 3 things came to this new house with us: 2 pieces of art and 1 chair. And this is one of the pieces that came. I just like the color theory that happens. It's interesting, it's a pop. And then I found this chandelier, which is super sculptural and fun. And when you see the light from outside, it just creates this beautiful, fun little sparkle. I opted for a white lacquer table because I felt like we needed that pop to happen to balance with the lamps. I had this made with a vendor of mine, and I think it turned out quite lovely. I like the roundness to it. Again, it kind of creates this motion where everything flows together, but nothing feels harsh. One thing that was a little bit different that I decided for this house was because we were gonna have concrete floors for durability and with kids and mud and dogs and such, I went for walnut paneling on the walls. It has that Palm Springs vibe to it. It creates that cozy warmth that I was seeking. But it's definitely something that I feel like everyone was, when they walked in during construction, were very confused by. And they also didn't understand why I had the black stripes in between, but I just felt like it gave a little bit of relief. And in itself, it also added another pattern, just oversized. And overall, I really like how it turned out. Okay, now we're gonna head over to the kitchen area. And for this, I went very simple. I decided that I wanted to bring walnut in, and so I opted for a walnut countertop. I wasn't really sure how it was going to work out, to be honest. It was kind of one of those risks that I took because I didn't know the durability of it, but walnut holds up very well, and it's actually been a great spot for it. And I love the warmth that it adds to the cabinetry. One of the risks that I took in the kitchen was bringing the walnut from the walls to the countertop. I knew I wanted it in the cabinetry, but I wasn't sure how it was going to play out for a countertop. And it actually is very hardy and works out well. And I love how the walnut brings in the outdoors through the large windows, and it just kind of all goes together seamlessly. I opted for black, kind of a harsh color in most people's eyes, but I felt like it needed to recede away. I didn't want the kitchen to be the focal point, believe it or not. We actually aren't huge cooks, and so I wanted to have it be simplistic and elegant, but not overpowering to everything else that was happening. I went with a countertop that just has a lot of movement to it. I wanted to keep it in the black, charcoal tones, have a little bit of white, and that became the island as well as a vent hood cover. When it came to picking decorative fixtures, I really like for everything to feel artful and have its own moment. And so when I found this linear fixture, I thought it was a perfect pairing to the starburst that you see over the dining room area. And I just think it's such a beautiful sculpture in itself. So it's fun. To bring a little of excitement and fun, I found a Moroccan rug. It's vintage. I love that it's vintage because I don't feel like we're going to destroy it. It's meant to be used. It's 100 years old, and to me that's perfect. It stands the test of time, and you can just give it a little wash whenever you're ready for it. So I encourage people to use vintage rugs in their kitchens as runners because I think it adds a beautiful touch to what could just be a plain, boring area. We don't have a natural pantry area or a secondary room off of the kitchen. And in order to fit everything, what I decided to do was a wall of cabinetry. And a little trick here, I made the cabinets a little deeper. They're about 28 inches deep. And so we can fit appliances in this section. And then I have pantry area plus dish storage. I kept it black because I felt like, again, it recedes back. It has a moment, but it's not overtaking with everything else that's happening around. It's a good balance. And I opt for drawers for all my lowers. I think that drawers are the best way to go because you're not having to bend down and find anything. And I also just really like the clean look that it has. In the evening, I like to have sconce lighting on in here. And so I found these little pretty brass squares. Again, they have like their own little sculpture moment. They feel artful. And I just like it because it creates this beautiful glow and doesn't take away from everything else that's around. And now we're gonna head over to what we use as our daily entrance. This is our little mudroom area. I wanted it to still feel like it was a part of the same vibe of the house. And so I opted for a fun pattern on the bench to bring a little bright pop to your day. And then this artwork is one of the 3 things that came from our last house. It's pegboard, and what I did was create a fun starburst on it, and then you can add hooks to it so that you can hang things. It's our daily wear where we hang all our jackets and backpacks and stuff, and then whenever you entertain, you can take them off and you just have some art hanging up. My style is risk-taking. I love bold color pops. I am not afraid to mix patterns, and I personally feel like a animal print is a neutral. My style has always been this way. I started out in art, and I love pattern, and I like how colors layer together. I have a visual studies degree in printmaking, and so I originally thought that I was going to actually design textiles, and didn't end up doing that. And now we're gonna go to a fun little spot. It's our little music room. This vestibule came about in a different way. We originally were going to have a guest room and some offices off this direction, and we decided to simplify the main house to our everyday use, and instead we created a guest casita that's separate from the home. And so with that, I ended up having this oversized vestibule. Wasn't sure what to do with it, but I knew it needed to have its own little moment. And my husband is a musician. And so I decided to make it a place where he could come, jam out, play guitar with friends and such. And yeah, so it became our music room. I started with this alligator print wallpaper. It's textural. I think it's so fun. It feels like you're in a kind of bar scene, and created cozy furniture, guitars. The I Can Make You a Believer in Fate is actually the first line to our wedding song. And so I had that made with a neon sign, because what says bar lounge like a neon sign? And then instead of just keeping a blank wall, I decided that we would do a black and white gallery of some of our favorite music artists that have had like an influence on our life. And so that was kind of fun. We went through trying to figure out how we were going to narrow it down and such. And I wanted to not have them just like be on stage performing. Instead, we really sought to find photos where they were like more in everyday lifestyle. So it felt like they were a part of the family, even though, clearly they're not. But they have had such an impact on our life. So they get a little wall moment. Some of our favorites that we have on the wall, I start over here with George Michael and his Wham days, because he was my favorite when I was growing up and I was always singing his music. A few other hits, we have Frank Sinatra, of course, Eminem. I've got Britney here in the middle because she's the pop princess. And then we have some other fun ones like Snoop and Dre, and then Elton John, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, Zeppelin. Keep it coming, they're all there. For the light in here, I wanted to find something really interesting, and this was another Ashley Childress moment with Global Views. They really knocked it out of the park, and I love it. It is one of my favorite pieces in the house. And then another little fun thing I did, I really like to mix in some black and white, and so on the little pop-up in the ceiling, I added a little black and white wallpaper to add some more pizzazz. Right off of our music room, we have our powder bathroom. And here, I wanted to have some fun, of course. This wallpaper is called Miami, and it was one of my favorite things. And so it's one of the first pieces I actually sourced for the house. Had no idea where it was gonna go, and it landed in the perfect spot, the powder room. It's a whole experience in itself. I opted for black and white here on my mirror to keep my black and white theme happening. And then found a really fun kind of palm feel to this pendant light. And in the evening, it's really fun when you're entertaining because you can turn the main lights off and you have this little glow happening. And so that's how that came about. All right, let's head to my daughter's room. It's also right off the music room. In this room, I did not hold back at all, as you can see. It is pattern on pattern and lots of color. Everything started with this mural on the ceiling. Butterflies are very special to us, and so I loved having the butterflies on the ceiling. Felt like they were watching over her in the evenings. And so I also opted for a clear acrylic fan because I did not want to take away from the fun mural, but I wanted to obviously have a fan because we live in Texas and you have to sleep with a fan on here. Everything is centered around this bed. I had it recovered in a really bold pattern, but I used a small scale and then balanced other large scale patterns off of it. This was probably one of my favorite rooms to design just because being a kid space, you can go all out and have fun. And so that's what we did. So found this really fun Robert Burns fabric, and I loved the little saying it has on it. It's actually a poem. And so that kind of repeats throughout her room, and then paired it up with some other fun finds. This is actually a quilt that my grandmother made and works perfect. And I love that it's a little piece of memory and home happening there. On the floor, I brought in a large scale black and white print to balance all of the small scale that's happening. And then for the walls, I didn't want to go white, felt too stark. And so instead I opted for a white that has a hint of blue to it to feel like you're just enveloped in part of that sky cloud feel. Found some really fun artwork for this room. We'll start here. This is a butterfly print, but it's made with candy wrappers. And so, what's better for a teen than candy wrappers, because they eat candy and junk all the time. So make it into art. And then over here at her little desk area, she likes to create art, and this is where she'll do her homework and such. And then I found this really fun piece that's made out of sprinkles, and it says, "This ain't the Ritz," because she thinks it is, but it's not. So I have to remind her. A little trick that I like to do whenever you are wanting color in a room, but you don't want it to be overwhelming, is start with the shades of white and find something that has an undertone that you're wanting to showcase. And so for this room, I used a Sherwin-Williams paint color that is actually a white, but it has a very soft blue tint to it. And whenever you paint everything that tone, it will emphasize that color more. And so that's why moldings and the walls are all the same color. So basically we color drenched this room in a single tone. My go-to design tip with any project is push your boundaries, and whatever makes you feel uncomfortable, allow yourself to do it. It's design. You will be okay, and at the end, you are going to appreciate and love that detail the most out of anything. If you're not making yourself a little bit nervous when you're doing things, then you need to go a little further. When it comes to working with clients versus designing my own home, I found that I actually was the worst client ever, which many designers do find. You have so many choices, and you also don't put as much time and effort into your own project as you probably should because you're busy working. And so I found that I was having to make decisions on a whim really fast. Most of them worked out fine. A few things I was like, would have done it a little bit different, but overall, it worked out. But yes, I was a terrible person at making decisions and getting information to my contractors in a timely manner. Okay, so now let's go to the primary bedroom. All right, let's enter my bedroom. And here I went a little moodier. You'll notice that it carries through the bathroom. Even though I do have white walls, everything else is very dark around it because I feel like that is what helps me rest. And so started with this fringe wallpaper. I fell in love with it and knew that it had to have a moment in the house. And so here it is. And I just love the glam it brings. And then I offset that with the pendant lights that are sculptural and create their own moment. I kind of like the juxtaposition between the two, how this is flowing and this is more Brutus and in your face. Working with the textiles, I opted for things with metallic since they were dark, so it would still have a light feel to it and balance, some sheen off of it. And this fabric right here was kind of like the moment that started the whole palette together. This is a Vusta print, and it's super artful, and that was what I loved when I found it. And so I had drapes made with it, and one of my favorite things is that in the evening, whenever you close the drapes down, you create this full wall moment that looks like someone came and painted a mural. And it's probably another one of my favorite moments in the house. And there you have it, a wall filled with fun. Across from the bed area, we just have like a little seating moment with a fireplace and our TV. This chair is one of the 3 things that came from our old house. So it's just kind of like Old Faithful that travels with you. Nothing special about it. It was just a memory from our old home. And so it fits perfectly here. And then I love the artwork. It's an original by Alicia Cummings, and I just think it plays so well with what you see on the fabric. It's soft, not overwhelming, and it's serene, even though I have all of these dark, bold pops around. Okay, so now let's head over to my bathroom. And here I decided to continue with the dark theme. I personally prefer a darker bathroom because it's calming. And for me, it's not jarring in the morning to have all these bright colors. It allows me to kind of ease into the day. So I opted for a onyx tile. And one thing that I did was, it's a subtle pattern, but I used honed and polished and created a checkerboard with it. So whenever the sunlight comes in, you can see this like little shift in tone. And it was just a fun thing. I went with walnut cabinetry, kept it real simple, floating. Everything in here is to feel very simplistic. And then opted for a vintage rug, and it brings in the color that you see in the bedroom with the drapes. Keeping with onyx, I found these onyx sconces and loved how they paired with everything, but they were the lighter version. The tub is a cast stone tub through native stone, and fun fact, it wasn't going to fit through our finished walls, so we actually had to have it craned in during framing and keep it concealed in a freight container so that we could have it in its place whenever it was time, which actually was helpful for the plumbers because it's 500 pounds. And so having it brought in right away with a machine was a lot better than having to have men carry it in. It's one of my favorite spots. I just like the softness that it has. Again, it's not white, and so it brings this mood into the bathroom. The light is just a sculpture piece, has a nice glow to it. Always put your lights on a dimmer, so in the evening you can turn it down and have a softer light. Our shower is over here. It's opposite of the vanity wall, so I carried the onyx through. It's like a cave. I love it because, again, it's calming, and I like having a dark, moody shower. Okay, now we're gonna head over to my laundry room. All right, y'all, let's head to the laundry room. I really wanted to make this a fun space because I don't like chores and I don't want to do laundry, so I glammed it up. I found a mica wall covering through Arte, and it was like the focal point start of everything. And then I paired it with an opposite tone with this nice, soft, kind of watery blue. I just felt like it had a good pop to it. It was opposite, a bit of a risk. I like how it turned out though. All right, so for the plumbing, I wanted to step it up. Went with a hammered sink. This is very useful. I wash and scrub in it, but it's still very pretty and glam. And I love this Brizo faucet paired with it with the brass. I hid the washer and dryer behind these doors because I do not want to be reminded of laundry waiting for me. And then I found these really fun pieces that hang on the wall for additional storage. Originally, I was going to do a wall cabinetry that matched over here, but I really wanted to find some furniture to, again, not make it feel so laundry room-esque and more like a room in itself. So found these, and I really, really like how they turned out. So the photo that I paired in here kind of touches on a little bit of everything in life when we spend a lot of time on the water, but also as a kid, I don't know if you ever went to SeaWorld, but they had the skiers that would do the synchronized routines. And so this just kind of vintage photo reminded me of that, and I thought it was playful. Now we're gonna head to our guest casita. This originally was going to be a part of the main house, but decided to separate it, which I think was the best thing we could have done because it allows our guests to come and go and not feel like they're intruding on our space. And it gives them a little bit of their own privacy, like a little hotel retreat. Upon entering the guest casita, we have a little sitting area. It's a cozy moment. This place is not very big. It's about 500, a little over 500 square feet. So every moment had to count for what it served a purpose for. Fun sofa, bright colors, and then I went opposite with this wallpaper that I fell in love with. It's psychedelic, and I just think it really sets the stage. We raised the ceiling height in here because it's such a small space, so it felt airier. And so having this dramatic print go all the way up, I just think really fills the space and cozies it up for you. Opposite of the wallpaper, I had a giant white wall, and besides having the artwork being placed there, I just felt like it needed something else to make it feel a little homier. And so I took a light pale white that actually has a pink undertone to it and created this rectangle that just kind of envelops the seating area. And then you move right here and you've got your guest little kitchen area. Small fridge for treats and such, place for them to make coffee and little dishwasher so that all the things can be cleaned out here and not have to be brought over to the main house. And yeah, I found these really interesting lamps when I was at market and picked them up. I wasn't sure where they were going to go, but I love how they worked out in this space. I just feel like, again, it's artful, it's quirky, like it's playful, and they found a great home. All right, so head over here, and this is the little sleeping area that we created. I wanted to work with a king size bed so that's kind of what most people are comfortable with. And so what we did was I had some built-ins placed on each side where there's hanging space and drawers down below for people to put things in. And there's also charging stations inside the drawers. So small, compact, but still has a lot of punch and fun to it. Carrying this little fun pop of red and pink, I found this wallpaper that I couldn't resist. I had to use it. Okay, so in this bathroom, I went with a major wow factor red wallpaper with a bold pattern. Red's not a color most people really like to use because it's so energizing, but I felt like it was just such a statement that kind of paired with what was happening on the bedding. And so bold, fun, interesting. That's what your guest experience should be. It should be a total experience. And so that's what we did. Home for me is a quiet place. It is a sanctuary where I can come and relax and just be around nature, my family. It's calming to me, even though I'm surrounded by color and a lot of patterns. I actually find calmness in chaos. And so for me, it's very relaxing.